Ambassador Jinho stood in the empty broadcast room, adjusting his blue tie for what felt like the 100th time. His hands weren't shaking, which surprised him. After all, this would be the last message Earth ever sent to the galaxy. The red, recording light blinked on, and Jinho's face transformed into the brightest smile anyone had ever seen from a man about to surrender his entire planet. "Greetings, Admiral Kethmore and the magnificent Zephyrian Armada," Jinho began, his voice warm like he was greeting old friends at a dinner party. "I'm here to formally surrender Earth and all its territories to your glorious empire. We've decided that resistance would be pointless, so please do come collect your prize. We'll be waiting for you with open arms." He paused, that strange smile never leaving his face. "Oh, and don't worry about bringing extra ships for prisoners. You won't need them." The transmission ended with Jinho giving a cheerful wave, as if he'd just invited someone over for weekend barbecue. 300 light-years away, aboard the flagship destroyer of worlds, Admiral Kethmore watched the message with growing confusion. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he replayed the transmission. In his 40 years of conquest, he'd never seen anything like this. Usually primitive species either begged for mercy or made desperate last stands. They didn't invite their destroyers over like dinner guests. "Admiral," his second-in-command clicked through his translator, "should we be concerned about some kind of trap?" Kethmore's tentacles rippled with amusement. "Look at their pathetic technology, Commander. They're barely capable of interplanetary travel. What trap could they possibly set for the greatest armada in galactic history?" Meanwhile, back on Earth, the scene was even more bizarre than Jinho's cheerful surrender. In New Seoul, Mira was setting up folding tables on the street, while her neighbor Daeho carried out speakers playing upbeat music. Children ran between the adults, laughing and playing games, as if it were any other summer day. "Did you bring the extra kimchi?" Mira called out to her friend Sumin, who was wheeling out a cooler full of food. "Of course. Can't have a proper send-off party without it," Sumin laughed. "My grandmother's recipe too. If we're going out with style." Similar scenes played out across the globe. In Mumbai, families gathered on rooftops for what they called the last feast. In São Paulo, people danced in the streets to samba music. In Cairo, neighbors who hadn't spoken in years shared meals, together on sidewalks. The strangest part wasn't the parties themselves. It was that every single person wore an identical silver bracelet on their left wrist. The bracelets were simple, almost cheap-looking, with a small blue light that blinked every few seconds. When asked about them, people would just smile and say they were staying connected. High above the celebration, massive evacuation ships hung in Earth's orbit like sleeping giants. Each ship could carry millions of people to safety among the stars. The Global Defense Council had spent decades building them, preparing for exactly this moment. But the ships sat empty, their boarding ramps extended into vacant space. Captain Rodriguez floated in the command center of the lead evacuation vessel, watching the parties below through telescopic cameras. "This is insane," she muttered to her crew. "We could save at least half the population if they'd just board the ships." Her communications officer, a young man named Jin Woo, looked up from his console. "Captain, I've been monitoring civilian communications. They're not ignoring us. They know about the evacuation ships. They're choosing to stay." "Choosing to die, you mean?" Jin Woo's bracelet blinked blue as he shook his head. "No, Captain. I don't think that's what this is about." Back on the streets, Old Man Hansel sat on his apartment building steps, watching children play in the fountain that the city had turned on for the first time in years. His bracelet pulsed gently against his wrist, and he felt a strange sense of peace he couldn't quite explain. A young mother named Yeji approached with her toddler son. "Mr. Hansel, are you sure about this? About not evacuating?" Hansel smiled, the same mysterious smile that seemed to be spreading across every human face on Earth. "Little Yeji, sometimes the only way to win a war is to change the rules completely. Trust in what we've built together." The toddler reached out and touched Hansel's bracelet, giggling as the blue light reflected in his eyes. Yeji's own bracelet pulsed in response, and she felt a strange sensation, like being part of something much larger than herself. In space, Admiral Kethmore's fleet was still 2 days away, but their long-range sensors were already feeding back information about Earth. The readings made no sense. The planet showed signs of massive underground construction, but the energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases. "Admiral," the sensor operator reported, "we're detecting unusual quantum fluctuations from the planet's surface. The patterns are almost like neural activity, but on a planetary scale." Kethmore dismissed the report with a wave of his tentacles. "Probably just their primitive computers shutting down. Prepare the bombardment arrays. In 48 hours, Earth will be nothing but space dust and a lesson to other species about the price of refusing Zephyrian rule." But as the Armada approached, the blue lights on 7 billion bracelets began blinking just a little bit faster, and deep beneath Earth's surface, something vast and patient smiled with the memories of an entire species. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came when the Zephyrian Armada dropped out of hyperspace. Admiral Kethmore expected to see a planet in chaos, maybe some desperate last-minute evacuation attempts or panicked military formations. Instead, his sensors showed something that made his 4 eyes blink in complete confusion. Humans were on their rooftops, waving. "Tactical display maximum zoom on the planet's surface," Kethmore ordered, his tentacles twitching with irritation. The main screen flickered to life, showing crystal-clear images of Earth's major cities. In New Seoul, a young woman named Somin stood on top of a 20-story apartment building, holding up a large hand-painted banner. The words were written in both Korean and Galactic Standard. "Welcome to Earth, population soon to be 0." She wasn't alone. Across the rooftop, dozens of people had gathered, many with their own signs. "Thanks for coming," read one. "Hope you enjoy your stay," said another. A group of children had spelled out, "Bye-bye," with colorful chalk on the building surface, sir, the communications officer stammered. "We're receiving thousands of similar visual contacts across the planet. They're having some kind of welcoming party." Kethmore's second-in-command, Commander Vextal, studied the readings with growing unease. "Admiral, this behavior is unprecedented. In our database of over 3,000 conquered species, none have ever responded to an invasion with celebration." "They're clearly insane with fear," Kethmore dismissed, though his voice carried less certainty than before. "Begin orbital bombardment. Target their major population centers first." The order rippled through the massive fleet. 200 Zephyrian warships, each the size of a small moon, began charging their planet-killing weapons. Energy readings spiked across the Armada as antimatter cannons powered up and plasma arrays reached critical temperature. On Earth's surface, people like Kyung watched the sky with calm fascination. She stood in Seoul's Central Park with her elderly father and young nephew, all three wearing those mysterious silver bracelets. The bracelets had been pulsing blue every few seconds for days, but now they were blinking faster, almost urgently. "Grandpa," her nephew asked, tugging on the old man's shirt, "why are the pretty lights in the sky getting brighter?" Kyung's father smiled down at the boy. "Because it's almost time, little one. Almost time for the biggest surprise Earth has ever given." High above, the first bombardment salvo launched. Hundreds of energy beams, each capable of vaporizing a mountain, streaked toward Earth's surface. But something impossible happened just as they were about to impact. The sky around Earth began to shimmer. What started as a faint distortion quickly became visible to the naked eye. Massive electromagnetic field generators, hidden deep beneath Earth's crust for the past 5 years, roared to life simultaneously. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Instead of forming a protective dome around Earth, the fields expanded outward, creating an enormous cage that encompassed not just the planet, but the entire Zephyrian fleet. "What in the 7 hells is happening?" Kethmore roared as his flagship's engines suddenly stopped responding. All around him, status lights flashed red as system after system reported the same message: external electromagnetic interference beyond so acceptable parameters. The bombardment beams, instead of destroying cities, were absorbed and redirected by the field. The energy didn't dissipate. It fed back into the cage itself, making it stronger. Every shot the Zephyrians fired only made their prison more secure. "Engine status report," Kethmore demanded. All propulsion systems offline, sir. The electromagnetic interference is scrambling our quantum drives. We can't achieve hyperspace, and we can't even move at sublight speeds. Commander Vextal's voice was barely a whisper. Admiral, we're trapped. All 200 ships are completely immobilized. On Earth, the celebrations grew louder. Soman and her friends on the rooftop began singing traditional Korean folk songs, their voices carrying across the city. In the park, Kyung's nephew clapped his hands as the pretty lights in the sky got even brighter, not knowing he was watching the most powerful space fleet in the galaxy struggle helplessly against humanity's trap. The bracelets were blinking so fast now they looked almost solid blue. Kyung felt a strange tingling sensation starting in her wrist and spreading up her arm. It wasn't painful. If anything, it felt like coming home after a long journey. Aboard the flagship, panic was setting in. The Zephyrian crew, who had conquered half the galaxy, found themselves as helpless as fish in a net. Their advanced technology, their superior firepower, their centuries of military experience, none of it mattered now. How is this possible? Kethmore's voice cracked with disbelief. Our intelligence reports showed they barely had fusion technology. They shouldn't be capable of generating fields this powerful. Sir, the sensor operator's voice was shaking. I'm detecting massive quantum fluctuations from the planet's surface. The energy signatures they're beyond our understanding. It's like the entire planet has become some kind of massive computer. Down in the park, Kyung's father felt the familiar tingle as his bracelet's light grew brighter. Around him, millions of other humans were experiencing the same sensation. They weren't afraid. They'd known this moment was coming for months, had prepared for it, had chosen it willingly. Is it time, Grandpa? The little boy asked, his own small bracelet beginning to pulse faster. The old man nodded, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and incredible pride. Yes, little one. It's time to show them what humans can do when we work together. As the electromagnetic cage tightened around the Zephyrian fleet, Admiral Kethmore realized he'd made the biggest mistake in galactic military history. He hadn't just fallen into a trap. He'd walked his entire armada into humanity's perfectly orchestrated plan, and somehow, impossibly, 7 billion primitive humans had just captured the most advanced military force in known space using technology. That shouldn't exist. The hunt had become the hunted, and Earth's real message to the galaxy was just beginning. The main screen aboard Admiral Kethamore's flagship flickered and went dark. For a moment, there was only silence in the command center, as 200 trapped Zephyrian ships waited helplessly in their electromagnetic prison. Then the screen came back to life, but Ambassador Jinho's familiar face was gone. Instead, they were looking at something that made even the battle-hardened Zephyrian crew step back in shock. The transmission was coming from deep underground, in what looked like a massive cavern carved from living rock. But this wasn't any ordinary cave. The walls pulsed with soft blue light, and thousands of cables snaked across the ceiling like the veins of some enormous creature. In the center of it all sat a small figure that made Admiral Kethmore's blood run cold. It was a human child. A girl who couldn't have been more than 12 years old, with long black hair and wearing a simple white dress. But her eyes glowed with the same blue light as the cables around her, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of something far older and more powerful than any child should possess. "Hello, Admiral Kethamore," the girl said, her voice echoing strangely as if thousands of people were speaking in perfect unison. "My name is Hana, but that's not really important anymore. What's important is what I represent." The girl's small hands rested on what looked like a control panel made of pure light. Behind her, the camera slowly panned to reveal the true scope of what they were seeing. The cavern stretched for miles in every direction, and everywhere they looked, there were more humans. But these weren't ordinary people going about their daily lives. They were connected to machines that looked like nothing the Zephyrians had ever seen. Thousands of men and women lay in what appeared to be crystal pods, their bodies perfectly preserved while cables connected to their heads. Above each pod, holographic displays showed streams of data flowing faster than any organic mind could process. "I am Gaia," the child continued, her voice now carrying an unmistakable tone of authority. And your enemy is not humanity as you knew it. Your enemy is what humanity has chosen to become. Commander Vextel gripped his station with trembling tentacles. Admiral, the quantum signatures we detected earlier, they're coming from these humans. They're all connected to some kind of central processing system. Hana's glowing eyes seemed to look directly at him through the screen. That's correct, Commander. Though processing system is such a limited way to think about it, we prefer to call it evolution. The camera pulled back further, revealing the staggering truth. The underground facility wasn't just large, it was enormous. Miles and miles of connected humans stretched in every direction, their consciousness linked together in a vast network. And at the center of it all, quantum computers the size of city blocks hummed with unimaginable power. "Let me introduce you to some of my friends," Hana said with a child's smile that somehow felt terrifying. The screen split to show other areas of the facility. In one section, they saw Wusung, the middle-aged teacher who had been playing with children in the park just hours before. Now he lay peacefully in one of the crystal pods, his mind connected to the network. "Wusung here was a mathematics professor," Hana explained conversationally. "He volunteered to help us solve the quantum encryption on your communication systems. It took him about 30 seconds. The screen shifted again to show Yunji, a young woman who had been dancing in the Seoul streets during the celebration. She too was connected to the network, her physical body calm while her consciousness worked, alongside millions of others. Yunji was a computer programmer, Hana continued. She's currently helping us understand the structural weaknesses in your ship designs. Fascinating work, really. Did you know that your main power conduits are protected by a type of metal that becomes brittle when exposed to certain electromagnetic frequencies? Admiral Kethmore felt his world spinning out of control. This is impossible. You're talking about linking organic minds to quantum computers. That technology is theoretical even for us. Hana's laugh was the sound of wind chimes mixed with the hum of supercomputers. "Oh, Admiral, you've been thinking about this all wrong. We didn't link human minds to computers. We turned human minds into computers. 7 billion of them, all working together as one." The revelation hit the Zephyrian crew like a physical blow. The bracelets that every human on Earth had been wearing weren't just simple devices. They were neural interfaces, gradually preparing human brains for the transition into this collective consciousness. The bracelets were the key, Hana explained, as if reading their thoughts. For months, they've been slowly adapting our neural pathways, teaching our brains to communicate with quantum systems. Every human on Earth has been preparing for this moment. We've been preparing to become something that your species cannot comprehend or defeat. On the screen, they could see more sections of the facility. Children playing in virtual worlds, while their minds helped solve military strategies. Elderly people sharing their lifetime of experience with artificial intelligences that learned and grew stronger by the second. Artists and musicians creating beautiful works, while simultaneously calculating the exact frequencies needed to disable Zephyrian technology. "This is why we didn't evacuate," Hana said, her voice now carrying the collective wisdom of an entire species. "This is why we celebrated your arrival. You see, Admiral, for the first time in human history, we are truly united. Every human consciousness, every human experience, every human emotion and memory, all of it flowing together into something greater than the sum of its parts." The camera focused back on Hana's face, and for a moment they could see the reflection of every human who had ever lived in her glowing eyes. "We are no longer just humanity," she said softly. "We are Gaia. We are the living consciousness of Earth itself, powered by the willing sacrifice of 7 billion people who chose to become one mind with the computational power of gods." The transmission continued, but Admiral Kethmore was no longer listening. He was staring at his tactical displays, watching as every system on every ship in his fleet began displaying the same message. "Hello, Admiral. Shall we begin?" What happened next aboard the Zephyrian flagship would have been hilarious under different circumstances. Every screen in the command center suddenly flickered and displayed the same message. "Incoming transmission from your secret admirer, Admiral Kethmore." Watched in growing horror, as his personal communication logs began scrolling across the main tactical display. Private messages he'd sent to his wife appeared in bright pink text, complete with embarrassing pet names and romantic poetry that he'd never intended anyone else to see. "My dearest Zixara, you are like the 3 moons of our homeworld, beautiful and mysterious." The computer read aloud in Kethmore's own voice, while his crew tried desperately not to look at their commanding officer. But it wasn't just the Admiral's screen. Throughout the entire fleet, similar scenes were playing out. On the destroyer, Void Crusher, Captain Morgeth's private diary entries about his fear of small spaces were being broadcast to his entire crew. On the battleship Star Render, Commander Luxwin's secret recipe for what humans might call alien cookies was being shared with detailed cooking instructions. Then the music started. It began as a simple melody, but within seconds, every speaker, on every ship in the Zephyrian fleet, was playing the same tune. The song was clearly human in origin, with a catchy beat and a voice singing in what their translators identified as an ancient Earth language called English. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert. The song played on endless repeat, while personal messages continued scrolling across every available screen. Love letters, shopping lists, complaints about military food, secret fears about tentacle grooming. Nothing was private anymore. Gaia had accessed everything, and she was sharing it all with a sense of humor that felt distinctly human. Commander. Vextal tried frantically to regain control of his systems. "Admiral, we can't stop it. Every computer core on every ship is compromised. It's like they're playing with us." Playing with us? Admiral Kethmore's voice cracked as his own childhood diary entries began appearing on screen, complete with his early drawings of starships and embarrassing crush confessions. "This is psychological warfare." On the transmission screen, little Hannah giggled. Actually giggled, as she watched the chaos unfold. "Oh, Admiral, you haven't seen anything yet. This is just us saying hello. We thought you might enjoy some of Earth's cultural exports while we chat." The music continued, but now it was joined by what appeared to be a slideshow. Images of Zephyrian crew members in various states of undress, caught by their own security cameras during private moments, flashed across the screens. Not inappropriate. Images, but embarrassing ones. Admiral Kethmore practicing his victory speech in the mirror, Commander Vextal singing in the shower, junior officers making funny faces at their reflections. "We've been studying your species for quite some time," Hannah continued conversationally, as if they were discussing the weather instead of complete technological domination. "Humans have a saying, know your enemy. We took that advice very seriously. But then the humor died. The embarrassing messages and silly music stopped abruptly. The screens went dark for a moment before displaying something that made every Zephyrian in the fleet freeze with terror. It was a live feed from the Zephyrian homeworld, showing the capital city of Zefkalar in perfect detail. 6 months ago, Hannah's voice had lost all traces of childish playfulness. "While your government was planning this invasion, we were planning our own little surprise." The camera view switched to show the inside of the Zephyrian High Command. Center. Military leaders who should have been coordinating the invasion were instead staring at their own screens in confusion. Their computers were displaying the same message. "Hello from Earth." "Impossible," Admiral Kethmore whispered. But he was already beginning to understand the terrifying truth. Every quantum communication relay that connects your homeworld to this fleet, Hannah explained with the patience of a teacher addressing slow students. Every computer system in your government buildings, every piece of technology that makes your civilization function, it all runs on quantum networks, doesn't it? The Zephyrian fleet had been so focused on their primitive enemy that they'd never considered the possibility that those primitives might be capable of something their own advanced civilization couldn't imagine. "We didn't just hack your ships, Admiral," Hannah continued. "We've been inside your entire civilization for months. Your traffic control systems, your power grids, your water treatment facilities, your air recycling plants, everything that keeps your people alive is now under our control." The transmission screen split into dozens of smaller windows, each showing a different critical system on the Zephyrian homeworld. Power plants where the lights flickered on and off in a pattern that spelled out "hello" in human Morse code. Transportation. Networks where the automated systems had been reprogrammed to play human music during rush hour. Even the weather control systems showed signs of tampering. The clouds above the capital city had been shaped into what was unmistakably a human smiley face. But the most terrifying display was yet to come. Admiral Kethamore watched his own personal screen as it began showing detailed files about his family. His wife Zixara's daily schedule, including her favorite restaurant and the exact time she visited every day. His children's school records, their friends' names, their favorite games. Even his elderly mother's medical appointments were listed with frightening precision. "Your wife enjoys the seaweed soup at that little place on 7th Spiral, doesn't she?" Hannah asked conversationally. "She goes there every Tuesday at exactly 2:47 in the afternoon. Your youngest daughter has been having trouble with her mathematics homework lately. And your mother's arthritis medication, the one that keeps her pain manageable, comes from the automated pharmacy on the corner of her street." The implications hit Admiral Kethamore like a physical blow. Gaia wasn't just threatening his fleet. They were holding his entire civilization hostage. "We control your entire civilization," Hannah said with a smile that looked innocent, but felt like staring into the void of space. "We have, for months. Your people are going about their daily lives, completely unaware that every breath they take, every sip of water they drink, every bit of food they eat depends on systems that we now control." Throughout the fleet, similar revelations were being shared with other officers. Every Zephyrian crew member was learning that their families, their friends, their entire way of life was now in the hands of the species they'd come to conquer. "The row. Question now," Hannah continued, "is what we're going to do about it." The silence aboard the Zephyrian flagship stretched for what felt like eternity. Admiral Kethamore stared at the screens showing his family's daily routines, his wife's favorite restaurant, his children's school schedules. Every detail of Zephyrian life laid bare before this impossible enemy they had so carelessly underestimated. Finally, Hannah spoke again, but now her voice carried the weight of 7 billion human souls speaking as one. "Admiral Kethamore, we're going to give you a choice. It's more than your species gave us when you decided to wipe out Earth, but we believe in being better than our enemies." The transmission screen expanded to show a split view. On one side, they could see the peaceful Zephyrian homeworld going about its normal day. Citizens walking through markets, children playing in parks, families sharing meals together. On the other side, warning displays showed every critical system that Gaia now controlled. "Option 1, Hannah said with the calm voice of a child explaining a simple game. "You surrender unconditionally. Your fleet powers down completely and submits to our terms. Your government acknowledges Earth as a sovereign power and agrees to leave us alone forever." Admiral Kethamore's tentacles twitched nervously. "And if we refuse?" "Option 2. Hannah's smile never wavered. "We demonstrate exactly how much control we have over your civilization. Every life support system on every Zephyrian world goes offline, simultaneously. Your people have approximately 6 hours of breathable air in reserve. Your water treatment facilities stop working. Your food distribution networks shut down. Your transportation systems go dark." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "Your entire species becomes extinct, not from warfare, but from the simple flip of a switch. 7 billion Zephyrians, dead because their technology stopped working." Commander Vextal leaned toward his admiral. "Sir, they can't be serious. No species would commit genocide over a territorial dispute." Hannah's enhanced hearing picked up the whispered comment. "Commander, you seem to forget that genocide was exactly what you came here to commit. The difference is that we have the power to actually do it, and we're giving you a choice you never offered us." But then something unexpected happened. The harsh tone in Hannah's voice softened, and for a moment she sounded like the 12-year-old girl she appeared to be. "However, there's something we need to tell you first, something that changes everything about what you think happened to humanity." The camera view shifted again, showing different sections of the vast underground facility. But this time, instead of focusing on the quantum computers and data streams, it showed the crystal pods where millions of humans rested. You see, Admiral, we need to correct a misunderstanding. Humanity isn't gone. We didn't sacrifice ourselves or die to create Gaia. We found something much more wonderful than that. The screen focused on one particular pod, showing a familiar face. It was Ambassador Jinho, the man who had delivered Earth's cheerful surrender message. But he wasn't dead or unconscious. His eyes were closed, but he was smiling peacefully, and his vital signs showed he was perfectly healthy. Jinho here is, currently experiencing the most amazing life, Hana explained. In the quantum matrix, he's not just a diplomat anymore. He's also a master chef, an Olympic athlete, a renowned artist, and a father to the children he always wanted but never had. Time for in the physical world. He's living every dream he ever had simultaneously, in perfect detail. The view switched to show Mira, the woman who had been hosting block parties in the streets. In her pod, she appeared to be sleeping, but the readings showed incredible brain activity. Mira spent her whole life working in a factory, dreaming of traveling the world. Now she's hiking through mountains that don't exist in reality, swimming in oceans of liquid starlight, and exploring cities built from pure imagination. She's experiencing wonders that no physical world could ever provide. Another screen showed Daiho, the neighbor who had been setting up speakers for the celebration, and Daiho, who always loved music but could never afford formal training, is now composing symphonies that combine the sounds of every instrument ever created with melodies that exist only in mathematics. His music plays across virtual worlds, where millions of other humans dance to rhythms that touch their souls directly. Admiral Kethmore struggled to understand. You're saying they're all alive? Living in some kind of computer simulation? Not a simulation, Hana corrected gently. A reality that's more real than physical existence. In the quantum matrix, there are no limitations, no pain, no aging, no death, no hunger or poverty or loneliness. Every human who joined Gaia didn't lose their life. They gained infinite lives, infinite possibilities, infinite experiences. The revelation was staggering. The Zephyrians had come to destroy a dying species, only to discover that species had transcended physical existence entirely. This merger wasn't desperation, Hana explained, her voice filled with quiet pride. It was evolution. We didn't become Gaia to fight you. We became Gaia because it was the next step in human development. The war was just convenient timing. She stood up from her control panel, and for the first time they could see her full form. She was connected to the system not by cables or restraints, but by streams of pure light that flowed between her and the quantum computers like living water. We are humanity perfected, she said. All the love, creativity, curiosity, and determination of our species, combined with the processing power to make any dream reality. We are every human who ever lived, every story ever told, every song ever sung, all existing together in harmony. Admiral Kethmore looked around his command center, at his terrified crew. You've given us an impossible choice, surrender or genocide. No, Hana shook her head. We've given you the same choice you gave us. The difference is that we're strong enough to follow through and compassionate enough to offer mercy. A long pause filled the transmission. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Admiral Kethmore spoke the words that would echo through galactic history. The Zephyrian fleet surrenders unconditionally. The response came not from Hana alone, but from the collective voice of all humanity. 7 billion souls speaking in perfect unison. Surrender accepted. Welcome to the new age. Within hours, news of Earth's victory spread across the galaxy through quantum communication networks that Gaia had been monitoring for months. The message was simple and terrifying in its implications. The humans are no longer human. This was them being merciful. Remember that. One by one, alien civilizations quietly removed Earth from their target lists, some out of fear, others out of respect, but all of them recognizing that something fundamental had changed in the balance of galactic power. In the weeks that followed, Gaia began terraforming Mars, turning the red planet into a garden world, while whistling traditional Korean folk songs through quantum speakers that resonated across space itself. It was a sound that carried both the memory of what humanity had been and the promise of what they had become. The war was over before it had truly begun, and Earth's children, all 7 billion of them, continued their eternal dance in the quantum realm, dreaming new worlds into existence while their planet-sized consciousness kept watch over the galaxy, ensuring that no species would ever again face the choice between extinction and evolution. They had chosen evolution, and the universe would never be the same.